All right, so we're going to talk about these deck surfaces again. If you're doing this, and a guy can do this, but if you're going to the forums and you're asking plumbers and hot shotters and people that framers and concrete guys, of questions about these, um, all you're going to get is a guy who put one of these together. You're not an expert, okay? The guy that's been doing this for 20 years on this particular engine, that guy might be an expert. That may be the guy that you want to ask, because that's the guy that might have done head gaskets on this engine 8 years ago. It had a lifter failure. It's like well over 200,000 miles now. Um, and 150,000 miles ago did head gaskets on this. I pulled the heads off, doing what I do, what I've always done, and the head gasket isn't anywhere near ready to blow. We used ARP studs to help keep that head from moving around. So, if you want to learn how to build these, you want to ask the people that build them, that know how to build them, not the people that are trying to sell you a $20,000 engine, but the people who are building an engine, and the engines are out there all over the place, accumulating miles and not having problems. So keep it simple, stupid. So anyway, on the block deck surface, yeah, we have some pitting and erosion on here. I don't care about that. I mean, there's nothing. That's a gasket design flaw, and there's nothing I can do about that. If it's too bad and it gets into the area around the cylinder here where the gasket seals, then we're going to do something about it if it's that bad. Um, what I do is I'm going to measure between all the bolts, go all the way around the cylinder, and catch this area here where the gasket actually seals. I'm going to stick my 1.5 thousand, 2 thousandths is the standard on the cylinder head, which is ridiculous. If I can't get a 1.5 thousandths in there, I'm going to clean this up without molesting the RA. I'm not going to hit it with a sanding board or anything like that. I'm going to clean this up, scrape all the coolant scale and all that horse shit off of there, and clean and dry, and put a new gasket on it. And it's going to be fine. Trust me, if you do it that way, it'll be just fine. So, especially, when you put one of these back together, you always want to use a stud, because the problem is with these stock bolts is, they're a good strong bolt. They're 12 millimeter bolts. They measure out the diameter, or the thickness of them. They measure out at 12 and a half millimeters. The stud is a lot stronger than this bolt, and it won't thermal cycle itself to death like these do, and lose their. They don't stretch; they just fatigue, and they lose their clamping force because there's a lot of pressure on them, a lot of heat and pressure on them. The stud won't do that. That'll help keep your cylinder head from moving on your engine. And we know they move because we see fret marks where it's a multi-layer steel gasket where it's working on the metal here. You can clean these off where the gasket ends here on the block deck surface, and you'll actually see fretting marks. You don't see that so much with studs, but you sure see it with the bolts. So, clean and dry, clean it up. Don't molest the RA on this, with sandpaper or any of that horseshit. And, clean everything up. Put your new gasket on there. I'm going to use an OE or a mall gasket. Uh, I've never used a Felpro, never even considered it. Didn't even know they made gaskets for these. But, I always going to use an OE or a mall, like I said. I did use some Cometics one time because I think it was, yeah, it was 2 years ago I built one of these engines. It was pretty rough. So we surfaced it. We ended up taking 5 thousandths off each side, which is, quite a bit. So we used the reduced compression pistons from Molly, and I ended up having to get a Cometic gasket because I wanted to get my piston, my deck, or my piston protrusion was a little. I mean, it was a little bit too high, so we got a custom gasket for 6.0 from them so that I could get the clearance that I wanted. And you can use your gasket crushed thickness, which your stock one is going to be 41 thousandths supposedly, but you want to, if you're putting an engine together, you want to check that. You're not going to check your bearing clearances and then not check that, and not check your piston to valve clearance if you're doing an aftermarket camshaft. And you're always going to want to check your lifter preload. On a stalker, man, I'm going for 60,000s on those, even if I have to buy a $400 set of push rods. That's what I'm going to do. Not 120,000s, not 100,000s. That's too much. The other thing, especially if you're using an aftermarket camshaft, a stage 2 or whatever the hell they are, you're going to check your piston to valve clearance. And I do it with clay. You can do the mathematics, but that's a lot of work. Just bolt your head on there, rotate the engine around with clay on the top of your piston in the areas where I just put 4 pieces of clay in there, oil them, roll the engine over, put them in the position where under the valves, because the valves sit in there at an angle, rotate the engine over a couple times, pop that head back off there. You want to torque it on there because you want to crush your gasket. And then cross section your clay and, measure it. And that'll give you your piston to valve clearance. It's not 1,000% accurate, but you can make yourself feel all warm and fuzzy that exhaust valve, because that piston is going to be chasing that exhaust valve. And to deal with the lifter issue, a good set of lifters and preload, try to hit about 60,000s if you can. That's what I do on all the ones, and I've had to buy push rods for them, and they cost me $400, but I've made an engine that's going to last a long, long time. So anyway, myth busted. Don't screw with the deck if you don't have to. There's no problem with this at all. You buy a reman from Ford, which I think Caterpillar is doing them. You'll see a lot of staining and stuff on them, and you just have to check your emotions. Yeah, there's staining on there. Iron is going to stain, when you get coolant on it, and for years and years, you're going to get a little bit of pitting. But you know, other than surfacing the deck, I mean, if it's that bad, then yeah, you want to do it. But I haven't seen any. I mean, I only ran into one that warranted surfacing of the deck. And the biggest problem with it was somebody took a whizzer wheel to it. I would like to just strangle people. Those things don't belong anywhere near an engine or a machine surface. You you can't accurately, you know, I mean, I just can't stress that enough. Keep that away from an engine. That's for cleaning rust off of something you're going to tack weld or whatever. They're not for cleaning surfaces on engines. They're just not. So anyway, that's it.